What is up, wrestling fans, and welcome to the latest episode of the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast here on the Smark Out Moment channel, where we go back to the year 2003 and check out every single episode of SmackDown under Paul Heyman's stewardship as the head writer. And we're getting very close to the end of that journey, but joining me, as per usual, Callum Wiggins, is Robert DeFelice.
Oh, Callum, they say there's no way out, but we're almost out of here, aren't we?
Yeah, there seems to be no way out of these box segments on SmackDown as well.
Ah,
I almost feel like we're going to be missing something when we come back next week, and there's just not going to be a crate on the stage at the start of the show.
I don't know how to function without a crate on the stage.
Well, hopefully you guys can function without crates, because we don't have any, and there's no one in the YouTube comment section or anything like that. But hopefully you'll be able to survive without it. You can check out all the other episodes we've got in the playlist as well. If you're starting a journey here at episode 35 for some reason you haven't seen anything else of the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast, there's a whole playlist on the YouTube channel you can check out. While you're on the YouTube side of things, why not leave us a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the little notification bell, drop a comment below, let us know what your thoughts are on this episode of SmackDown or our review of it in general. If you're listening to us through any of the other means, of course, there's plenty of other ways you can listen to us through iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify and tons of other just more audio platforms like that. Then drop us a review or a rating or anything else that those platforms allow you to do. And of course, there is also a link in the YouTube description to this episode of SmackDown on the WWE Network if you so wish to check it out before it all goes to Peacock. So with that sort of stuff out of the way, let's talk a little bit about news. The big news coming out of WWE at this point in time is that Goldberg officially signed with the company.
Maybe it's because I was younger and maybe they didn't announce this until Mania. But I never heard anything about Goldberg. That was the weirdest signing ever because it was just like, hey, it's Goldberg, and hey, he's here tomorrow. And that's when we get to WrestleMania. And looking back on it, we just did Starrcade 97, where he has like an actual match with Mongo. And
Of all people.
his entire run in WWE the first time around, he's going to be filled with actual matches. And now it's like, I don't know if I ever really wanted to see Goldberg work a full match.
No, exactly. Say what you will about Goldberg's overexposure in the last few years and stuff like that, but I think it's gone to show that if Goldberg is used sporadically and he just has his match, then it can be good.
Yeah.
I think WWE showed that during his short run with the company in 2003, 2004, they didn't stick to the formula, and that ended up hurting his prestige. Because the thing about Goldberg is that he shouldn't wrestle very often, and when he does wrestle, he should be squashing people.
He absolutely should. I don't know if there's a real reason for him to ever have a full-blown match, especially ever again. But even back then, when he was coming in, I don't know why they felt the need to strip him of what made him him.
So he signed probably too late in order to get involved in some sort of WrestleMania program. So they decided, okay, we're going to run with the Rock Austin thing post No Way Out, heading into WrestleMania, and then the next pay-per-view immediately after that we'll do Rock and Goldberg, because that's the match that really got Goldberg interested in the first place, is that Rock wanted to have a match with him.
You know what, though? There's a lot of people with big mouths, even like an Eric Bischoff, that you could have had Goldberg show up at Mania, spear Bischoff, jackhammer Bischoff, 1, 2, 3, and, moved along.
I think that they decided to just go with the tried and tested thing because they didn't have anything else for Austin, really. Now Austin was back. It made the most sense to him to go with The Rock. Because otherwise it would have been, well, knowing what we know now, this wouldn't obviously been realistic, but the only real choices for Austin were him to go against Rock or him to go against Triple H.
I mean, if I could have that one back, I might go Hunter, just because Hunter's match was such a disappointment that evening. But, we got what we got, and it was pretty good.
So that's the big signing in terms of other signings in terms of not so much talent, but in terms of television contracts. UPN signed a new deal with SmackDown, which would see them through to September 2005.
You can say whatever you want. They have come a long way since UPN. Because UPN, first of all, doesn't even exist anymore.
Mm.
It was consolidated into CW around 2007-ish, and the Fox network is huge, and I feel like WWE belongs on a huge platform. As you can say what you want, they are one of the biggest entertainment brands in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what the previous deal was in terms of monetary wise for WWE and UPN?
No
Let's
clue.
let's put this. We'll put it in the context of the fact that how much are they net as Fox paying them for SmackDown at the moment? It's 200 million a year, right?
Yeah.
So that previous deal for the UPN thing saw WWE pay UPN $16 million a year.
Wow.
So WWE was actually paying UPN for the slot.
That
This
doesn't
deal
seem right. Maybe
maybe not actually. I'm trying to read, but it's either way. It's like it's either WWE paying UPN 60 million, which I think is probably unlikely reading it. Maybe it's the case that I think it maybe just been because I'm reading it from the Observer. Maybe it's just like written incorrectly. But either way, it would just be UPN paying WWE 16 million. So it just shows how big it's grown.
Because
Either one.
yeah, I was gonna say like they are way too big at this point to be paying for television exposure, especially on a platform like UPN. But they've definitely grown exponentially, and it's so interesting because we could say what we want about the nature of the product, but they are a worthwhile brand to invest in.
Mm. So yeah, the new deal for UPN would see the new deal would see UPN pay WWE $500,000 per week for the rights fees to the show.
I think they could have done better.
Well, at this point in time, TNN was paying them $550,000 per week for Raw. So both shows were earning about $500,000 a week for them.
What do they earn now?
Well, I'll put it this way. So if it's 200 million a year, if we divide that round about by 52, so they're probably getting about 4 million or so
Jesus Lord.
per episode now.
Wow.
Yep.
That's insanity, man.
Yeah, as I said, as the interest in wrestling has died from basically this point in like 2002, 2003 onwards, wrestling has become far more expensive.
That's so crazy.
Other stuff into the TV stuff. Heat was moving from MTV to TNN on.
They're not Spike yet? When are they Spike? They're Spike by the end of this journey, are they not?
Not by the end of this journey, I don't think, because that's I assume like maybe at some point in 2003, but they're still referred to as TNN at this point. But yeah, so they would start on Heat in early April. So that basically ends WWE's association with Heat with MTV because they would not renew Tough Enough either. So yeah, WWE off MTV for good at this point.
Okay, so the Spike TV officially launches August 11th, 2003.
Yeah.
You know what their tagline was, Callum?
What, of just Spike itself?
For Spike TV when they first came on.
No.
The first network for men. So what they had done was they loaded themselves up with WWE. They got a whole animation block, which included a revamped adult version of the already adult Ren and Stimpy show, Ride with Funkmaster Flex, and personal favorite of mine, Stan Lee's Stripperella, starring Stripperella, played by Pamela Anderson.
Okay.
An amazing time. Of course, I think the rest of this was just buffered with World's Most Wild Police videos and just a lot of really testosterone-based things, Callum. Because men like car wrecks and wrestling.
Well, speaking of stuff that's specifically for men, let's talk about the Girls Gone Wild pay-per-view.
Woo!
So it did pretty good business. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it's basically just reported it did pretty good business. But the reaction, especially to the WWE side of things, was very entirely negative.
Why?
Mainly due to like a bait and switch again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the next iteration of Torrie and Dawn are going to do some really hot stuff in a hotel room. Okay, we get to see them kiss for like 5 seconds, then we're done. Stephanie McMahon is going to do HLA. Well, no, she's not. She's going to make out Rikishi in drag. And And this one was built around the idea that Torrie's going to strip, maybe not entirely naked, but she's going to go topless on the thing. And as soon as she's about to essentially let the pigeons loose, so I guess that's the opposite side of it. But instead, she's jumped by Nidia, who just attacks her at the show.
So Nidia should have gotten naked. Like, okay, look. All right, we're far removed from this time period, but as it stands, just show a little tit. Like, you could have just done it, even if you had Torrie flash for like a good 30 seconds. At least it's, hey, we said you'd see some uncensored nudity. We delivered.
I guess they were trying to hide that side of it, mainly due to the fact that Torrie would soon be in Playboy. So what's the point of having her just show her tits on pay-per-view when you're going to have to buy them to see it through Playboy?
Well, you're going to have to buy them if you want to keep them forever. Pay-per-view
you could record the pay-per-view forever.
Fair point.
I guess it's not like there was no YouTube at this point that would just, well, YouTube wouldn't allow it anyway, but I guess like a Daily Motion or something like that would be able to preserve this thing for all eternity. Well, they didn't know that was going to happen at that point.
Yeah, well, I think it sucks that they bait and switch, but that's WWE for you.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about WWE in terms of our Raw review for this aspect of it. Obviously, a big part of our side of things is SmackDown. That's what we've been doing this whole way, but we talk a little bit about what Raw was up to. First, talking about the rating side of it. So last week, Raw was victorious for only the second time in several months, but SmackDown was back on top for this week. So the 20th of February edition scored a 3.91, whereas the February 17th edition for Raw scored a 3.8. So very close, but SmackDown just about edging it. Probably due to Rock and Hogan, I'd imagine.
I would imagine that, yeah, it was much more important to see Rock and Hogan than it was whatever it is Eric Bischoff decided to do that week.
Yeah, which is obviously main event, the episode of Raw. Because in the main event of Raw, in a preview before Eric Bischoff took on Stone Cold Steve Austin at No Way Out, he took on Stone Cold Steve Austin's best friend, Jim Ross.
Now, this is knee deep in many years, and what would be many years following, of just like, let's play on this Jim Ross thing with Stone Cold, and let's embarrass Jim Ross at every chance we get.
Yeah, pretty much. So they did a little karate demonstration of Eric Bischoff, like breaking cinder blocks and watermelons and stuff like that. And then he took on JR in a no-holds-barred match. Morley assaulted JR. They just beat him up for a while. Jerry Lawler tried to get involved to save him, but couldn't do anything about it. Bischoff then punched JR in the stomach and pinned him.
Yeah.
And then drunk beers on the second rope like Austin used to.
I will say the last 5 years have not been as kind to Eric Bischoff as they have been to some other people. Because we just watched Starrcade, and if nothing else, Eric Bischoff looked pretty good at Starrcade. He was not, I guess, feeling it as much in 2003.
Other stuff that happened, so he saw a tag team match which between Booker T and Scott Steiner against Triple H and Batista.
Right.
And Booker T pinned Triple H.
I think that's important.
Yeah, because even though at this point it was building towards a Scott Steiner and Triple H match at No Way Out, that's an early indication of where the direction was going for WrestleMania.
Yeah, we know where we're going.
Oh yeah, we know where we're going, yeah, of course. It was quite interesting as well. It's just the idea that Booker T and Scott Steiner teaming together.
Do you think, and they would end up being TNA Tag Team Champions in 2008, but do you think that Triple H, in his own way, was like, man, if I would have been healthy in 2001, I could have gotten the Invasion and Booker T and those guys over, and he was trying to do it here?
I think potentially. I think Triple H wanted to work with all these WCW guys. Part of me thinks that he might have taken the same attitude that Undertaker took to the WCW guys, which is, let's fuck all these guys up. And that's kind of, because realistically, what's what Triple H spends most of 2003 doing is beating guys in WCW.
That's what he spends literally all. I've never seen a year like that where you can just go, he doesn't fight a single WWE homegrown guy that entire
Well,
year. And
I guess Nash was a WWE home, right? I mean, he was. I guess he was Oz beforehand, but I don't think many people
but
really.
it's true, but like by that point, a lot of people still probably say, ah, but he's a WCW guy because NWO and stuff like that. But like outside of Sean, like everybody is so rooted in the WCW main event scene. Very strange.
So what else happened? So there's a tag team, no DQ match. Chris Jericho and Christian lost to Jeff Hardy and Shawn Michaels when Jeff Hardy pinned Chris Jericho with a Swanton Bomb. So that's Jeff Hardy's first win in a while.
Very good.
We see the debut of Rodney Mack as Teddy Long's protege.
I think that this had legs, and unlike Stacy Keibler, didn't know how to use them.
Yeah, so he defeated Al Snow and started off his own winning streak. They did a video tribute package for Mr. Perfect following his tragic death that we discussed last week.
Yeah, it's it still hits strange because you look at again, just watched Starcade, and Hennig looks so good.
Divas tag team match, Molly and Jacqueline lost to Victoria and Jazz, and then they started teasing tension between Victoria and Jazz over the women's title.
Interesting.
And the only other match that really happened was RVD defeated Lance Storm, and it was just discussed about the fact that RVD and Kane will be getting the World Tag Team title opportunity against William Regal and Lance Storm and No Way Out.
That's good. I like the RVD and Kane pairing.
Yeah, it's a nice little odd couple. But yeah, that's pretty much what was happening with Raw. So let's move on to our main event, talking about SmackDown in much more detail. So February 20th, 2003, from the Conseco Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very. That's one of their like staple places. I still think we're at a stage where we haven't heard a lot of unique states throughout this entire journey.
So the show kicks off, like really just kicking off hot with The Rock's music. Rock's coming out for the first time since SummerSlam, live in person. He gets a huge reaction. He walks between two giant crates on the stage.
Oh yeah.
Big Show's doubled up in his attempts to try and convince the Undertaker that he's really sorry.
I think that The Rock should have come out of a crate. You know why, Cal?
Why?
Because anyone who comes out of a crate is over.
Ah, yes, of course. Good to know. Rock, what do you think of The Rock's attire for this?
Unique. It's douchebag. Like it's big time douchebag, but it's also very early 2000s. Like nobody would ever do that today.
Did you see the size of his belt buckle?
Oh yeah, I mean, he's not overcompensating for anything. We don't cover Raw, but he's gonna tell the Hurricane in a couple weeks that everything's fine down there.
Also, do you think it's amazing that this Rock is half the size of the Rock now?
Yes.
Do you think that? Do you think
he's
that
too big.
Do you think that he felt at this point in time that he had to look like he does at this point to be taken seriously as an actor?
Yeah, and I think the reason he eventually bulks is because he went for the Arnold spot instead of like maybe a Bruce Willis kind of. He went for the Arnold spot, but he's ridiculously huge now.
So he comes out, he says finally several times, and he starts, and then he does the famous India now, who gives a crap? Just becoming a heel at this point.
He's a great heel. This version of The Rock may be the best version of The Rock. It might be a crime that we only get this Rock for a few weeks.
He kind of hides the idea of being a full-blown heel at this point, because he says that who gives a crap about what he has to say, because the only people want to see him confront Hogan, so nobody cares what he has to say right now. Crowd chants loudly for Hogan. There's a mixture of like boos and cheers for The Rock throughout this. Rock says he feels like people don't want to hear his shtick tonight, and he's heard some people booing. Cue booing. So he doesn't mind people's reactions because he's still the most electrifying thing that they'll ever see. He says,
I was gonna say he is very good at interpersonal communication, and he is very good at hearing every blip from an audience and playing on it.
"Oh yeah, he's someone that he's someone you just can't script. I mean, you can give him footnotes, but he'll just do what he does, and you just have to go with it."
Right.
I have a strong feeling that because of both of his segments, both this and the segment with Hogan later in the night, that a lot of matches were cut for time.
Do you blame him?
No, I don't, because this stuff is more
important.
When it's the Rock, it's fine, and when it's Hogan, it's fine. But it's just, just as a spoiler, it's like an overarching thing. We get less than 20 minutes of actual in-ring action on this show tonight.
Yeah, which is a different feeling, but it's also like, I think it's good, you know?
Every now and again, it's fine. If it's the Rock, then you just make do with it, really.
Right.
Rock says that he's here for the people and he's committed to WWE before he immediately answers his cell phone to his PA.
I love that.
He tells people
he gets it. He knows what the people were pissed off about, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna give it to you."
He tells people to be quiet and says that he doesn't plan to be surrounded by these hicks for too long, even though, of course, he was referring to the hickory trees that you get in Indiana.
Rock is awesome.
Rock asks people if they want to boo him and if they know the ramifications of booing him. Most of the crowd then boo. Rock asks if he sold out and if it's because he's got a big head now. He says that he makes more money in a night than they make all year, and he'll make Hogan his little bitch at No Way Out.
Well, he would.
Yeah, burying the lead a little bit there, Rock.
Well, I mean, fair, but if you haven't seen it by now, that's on you.
Yeah. Rock says that he'll confront Hogan like a man when he arrives later on tonight, and then he goes to do the "if you smell" line, but he stops when he hears the people echoing it, and he says that sing along with the Rock is all over now. You guys have made your mind up. You're going to boo me now, so you don't get to do the sing along stuff instead.
More people need to do that.
Yeah. He tells them to have some self-respect and stick to their guns. If they're going to boo him, then they boo him. But if you want to cheer along, then you shouldn't have booed him in the first place. And then he finishes the "if you smell what the Rock is cooking" line on his own. So, yeah, this Rock's awesome.
Yeah,
Heel Rock is great.
He really is.
Get the tail of the tape for Brock versus Angle, which was a lot more impressive than the Brock versus Cena tail of the tape.
You mean to tell me that Kurt Angle isn't a freestyle master?
I guess, well, we found out that how good of a freestyle master he was later in 2003 when he took on John Cena in that epic rap battle. You don't remember that one?
Oh, well, of course I do. It's Leading Towards No Mercy.
Oh yeah, of course. What I found most interesting about the tail of the tape, though, was it notes that Angle is a former hardcore champion. Which he is, obviously. He's obviously a hardcore champion. But it doesn't reference the fact that he's a former European champion. So in their mind, the hardcore championship means more than the European championship.
Well, it shows more versatility.
I guess so. I also feel like Angle won the Intercontinental. He's, again, another former Intercontinental champion. I'm surprised that he only won that once. They gave it to him really on in his run, and then he never touched it again.
It's because he touched the world title, and that was still at a time where, unless your name was Jericho, once you're world champion, you don't go back.
I guess so. I mean, Triple H went back.
That's only because look at the other guy who's holding the title.
Going into our first of 3 matches tonight that go less than 2 minutes. Chris Benoit versus A-Train.
Yeah, I'm alright with that going 3 minutes.
Well, no, it's the idea that you knew their time was cut immediately because A-Train immediately just starts attacking Benoit. Decks him with a clothesline early on. He hits a muscle buster for 2. So he was clearly watching some early Ring of Honor stuff.
Or at the very... Yeah. He's the kind of guy who, I guess, look at the job he has now. That would make a lot of sense.
Benoit again counters the derailer into the crossface. A-Train manages to power up, but Benoit then switches to the other arm. A-Train gets up again, he eats a German suplex, They then exchange chops and punches and kicks for a little while until Benoit then just rolls him up for the victory.
Fair enough. I mean, like we've already established, it's not going to be a long night.
No. Honestly, I was surprised they had enough footage in that match to do a replay afterwards.
Sure.
Hogan arrives at the building. Funaki is
How dare
backstage.
they arrive to the building so late? I'm sorry. Like this is a trope of this time that
The Rock's that's saying he's sold out and he's not committed and stuff like that. Well, he was here on time. He was ready to go straight from the get go, and Hogan's the one that's sauntering
and I
in.
bet you anything Undertaker's not even there. He's gonna come strolling in, you know, like these people.
Funaki goes around backstage and says that he wants an interview with The Rock, but he stopped at his dressing room by his 2 security guards. Because The Rock's a big deal now.
Any idea who the security guards are?
I haven't seen any. I couldn't find any information based around that one. I didn't recognize either of those two, so it wasn't anyone that we could like say, oh, it was like that time when Sheamus was a security guard for a segment and stuff like that, or CM Punk was hanging off the John Cena's car at WrestleMania 23 or something like that, or 22, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, it's 22.
Yeah, the Chicago stuff. But yeah, I couldn't figure out anything with that regards. I assume they were just 2 like OVW wannabes.
Yeah, and at that point there was quite a few of them.
We have Rikishi versus Johnny Stamboli. So building off last week's attack, starting off with the full-blooded Italians attacking Rikishi. Referee immediately forces Nunzio and Palumbo to the back, which I think really defeats the objective of having a new faction put together.
Maybe they thought they were getting the jump, you know?
Yeah, maybe. But Stamboli was very impressive in terms of his strength. He bench presses Rikishi over his head before slamming him down. Yeah. So that's a good £350 just going all the way over his head, and the crowd actually popped pretty big for that. But then he does something that isn't so impressive, which is they go show the replay, and in the inset we see Stamboli trying to leap directly onto the top rope and stumbling and falling on his ass in the turnbuckle.
How do you not edit that shit out?
I guess they couldn't do it because it was the inset thing. I don't know how they could do that side of it, but they just
cut to another camera.
Well, Kevin Dunn wasn't as frugal with that sort of stuff at this point in time, I guess. He just decided, we're just going to keep an eye on this instead. He just looks ridiculous. He does follow it up with a nice spinning leg drop out of the corner for 2.
Fair.
So he did well after that, but you just turn back to after the inset promo and just everyone's just laughing at what he's just done.
As they should.
Stamboli beats Rikishi in the corner until Rikishi turns the tables and hits a Samoan drop. Rikishi then hits a Savate kick and just pins him. So,
and the full-blooded Italians would never be that big of a deal.
Yeah, it just seems really odd to me that you would have this first match and Rikishi just beats one of the guys of the new faction you put together. You know, Rikishi's he shouldn't be a jobber by any stretch of the imagination, but surely he should lose one of these matches.
Yeah, they got Nunzio, brought him in with one thing, dropped it immediately, gave him this, and are already starting it off with a loss. I don't think they had high hopes for Nunzio.
So Palumbo and Nunzio come back out, but Rikishi fights them all off for a while. He catches Nunzio in a dive and sets up to do another Samoan drop, but Palumbo then kicks him in the face. And then they just do a carbon copy of last week's beatdown with Nunzio covering Rikishi's face with his leather jacket and throwing punches. So protecting his head before he started punching it.
No, he's suffocating him.
Oh, okay. It's good to know.
Yeah.
They're suffocating his group at the moment with this booking. But
there you go.
Angle and Benjamin are sparring backstage as Huss coaches them for the side because they're preparing for the supposed Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar match tonight. Angle says that he believes in leadership by example and will live up to his 3 eyes tonight. It's going to fight Lesnar tonight because he's a fighting champion and he promises to break Lesnar's ankle.
I like it.
Yeah, it was totally fine. I do like these interactions between Team Angle.
Again, I really wish that group had gotten a little bit more time.
We get to see our first ever Los Guerreros lie, cheat, and steal vignette.
Ah, how iconic is this?
It's so listen. This is the gimmick that is what we most remember Eddie Guerrero for. And yeah, I mean, this is the epicenter of it. So they walking around a suburban block. Chava openly talks about stealing a car somewhere in this area a little while ago. Well, just anybody could be listening. They see a woman pushing a pram, and then they compliment her and ask her if they saw her on Baywatch earlier, because that's their gimmick. They talk up people in order to take stuff from them.
I wish they would have chosen anything other than Baywatch, which is not over at this point in time in 2003.
They talk to the baby, like that she's pushing the pram with, like, there's a camera where the baby would be. This is the same camera angle they used for that Baby McMahon Trump segment from WrestleMania 23.
This is also it's very similar to the coffin cam when you're inside the casket. Like, I like these camera angles.
They ask her name. She says that it's Emily, and Eddie says that just picks from the sky, saying that means light of God in Spanish.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
So as she walks away, Eddie says that that's the ugliest baby that he's ever seen, and reveals that he's stolen all of her possessions, like her wallet, her phone, her watch, everything. And Chavo just shows him that he's got the baby's bottle, saying that Eddie stole everything else, so he had to grab something.
Well, you know, I appreciate Chavo's dedication to the craft.
So yeah, that's their. That's
Isn't it interesting that this is the thing that they're most known for? But if we isolate this, it's like super xenophobic.
Oh yeah, it's super racist.
Yeah,
it was the same sort of thing of like the. I mean, WWE was in a mood for this sort of thing and it obviously.
Not as bad as the Mexicals, I'll say that.
No, it's not as bad as the Mexicals, and it's not as bad as Crime Time.
But you know what, though? I will compare it to Crime Time like this. Crime Time was good. Crime Time had fun with it. Like, I never mind the Crime Time thing because I thought it was playful, you know?
The thing that I love the most about the Crime Time one is the narrator.
Yeah, I think that made it all the more better.
Yeah, but Collins has like laughing on commentary saying, well, at least they're honest about it. It's like, yeah, they steal everybody's possessions and they should be in prison, but hey, they're being honest about it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That means we can like these guys.
That's right.
Move on to a match that fortunately was not just 2 minutes. Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman versus Matt Hardy and Shannon Moore.
Seems like a match that would have happened for the WCW Cruiserweight Tag Team Championship, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not something that's really brought up too much because we have seen Mysterio and Kidman interact before a little bit, but they haven't really tagged up too much yet. But obviously, they have a long history of tagging together from the later years of WCW. A couple of filthy animals here.
I do believe they were the final team to hold those titles, weren't they?
Yeah, they were the second and final team to ever hold those titles.
That's right.
We get introduced to Matt Hardy informs us through his entrances that he's miserable when dieting.
I feel that.
Yeah, and he finds Shannon very hard to teach.
Ugh, you think Crash is any easier?
They show footage of Hardy being weighed backstage, and he's still being slightly too heavy, so he removes all his clothing, including his boxer shorts, and then once he's down to the bare bones, it reveals that he has reached 220, and so he will get the opportunity to face Billy Kidman for the Cruiserweight Championship at No Way Out.
Does he have to be naked?
No, I think it's just the idea. I mean, they do those weigh-ins for like boxing and stuff like that when people have to strip down to like next to nothing. They still wear clothes when they fight.
That's fair.
Yeah. And actually, we'll find out when we actually do our No Way Out review that Hardy takes this one measurement of his weight and uses that to his advantage when it goes to No Way Out. But we'll discuss that at the time. Moore starts out strong with like a spinning heel kick to Mysterio. Kidman tags in, they hit a double hip toss and a combination leg drop move. Hardy tags in, fights a little bit in the corner. He hits Kidman with a side effect. I thought it was quite interesting that Kidman was the one that took the heat for this match.
So matches like this, they always leave me wanting more, but it's also like, it's one of the reasons why I look at today and I'm like, you don't need 30-minute matches.
No,
on every single television show.
No, absolutely. I'm not saying that this needed any more time than it was given. It's just I thought it was odd that the champion that you're supposed to be building up before the pay-per-view is the one that's being beaten down by the other two guys, while a guy who is obviously more popular and is like more of a big deal in general.
The answer to that question, it's Kidman.
And I know it's Kidman. I know there's a reason for it.
He's only Torrie Wilson's friend, despite the fact that he's her husband, because they wanted to downplay him at all times.
So Kidman connects with a drop kick. He makes the hot tag to Mysterio. Mysterio goes wild, sent onto Hardy, a tilt-the-world backbreaker to Shannon Moore, diving crossbody onto Hardy. He Hurricane Rana's Moore out of the ring, hits a 619 on Hardy, but Moore then distracts Mysterio, who misses the West Coast pop, and is caught into a springback powerbomb by Hardy for 2. I think we saw that somebody do that to him last week as well. Didn't Noble do that to
him? Yes.
Like the little powerbomb where you bounce it off the ropes before hitting it. So Hardy's just picking up stuff from other people, but it's good, so that's fine.
Yeah, he's a bigger star.
Kidman tags Mysterio on Hardy's shoulders. He flies in with a missile drop kick. While the referee is busy dealing with Mysterio, this allows Moore to hit Kidman with a leg drop while he's pinning Hardy, but this isn't the finish. Kidman launches Mysterio onto Hardy for the top rope Hurricane Rana, so that's basically the edge spot, the edge of Mysterio spot that we saw for a few weeks when they were tagging.
I'm pretty sure Kidman probably did it first.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. He lifts Mysterio onto Moore on the floor as well, so Mysterio takes out Moore on the at ringside, but Hardy at this time recovers, hits the Twist of Fate, pins Billy Kidman. So yeah, Hardy gets the edge over the champion before the show.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Good match. Yeah, it was a good match. But again, they should have done a better job of building Kidman up. But it's Kidman.
I think that's the whole thing. Honestly, what should have happened here was Ray should have beaten Noble and just dropped it to Hardy.
So I know that the big draw of this entire show is based around the Rock and Hogan confrontation, but I don't know. I don't know if we really had this interview segment beat, because it's Michael Cole doing a sit-down interview with SmackDown's newest signing, Nathan Jones. So Jones talks about how the American people have been very forgiving of him, considering his past, about the armed robbery of all that other stuff. I mean, based on his criminal record, he could certainly run for a president if he was he was American. Says that he's paid his dues and he's looking forward to his future with WWE. Michael Cole asks him what his goals and ambitions are for the WWE. Then his voice gets really deep, and I think they're just doing the whole like, "Oh my god, he's crazy" gimmick, by just like making his voice go all deep and gravelly. He says that he wants to become WWE champion, but first he has some unfinished business with the biggest dog in the yard. So
now, what was the idea here?
Well, the idea was that I don't know whether in their mind it was to link him up with the Undertaker immediately, because obviously that's the route they're going, or if there was some thought in their mind that they were going to do Nathan Jones versus the Undertaker at WrestleMania.
Well, I know for a fact that the latter is true. They wanted to do Nathan Jones versus the Undertaker.
Would Nathan Jones have beaten the streak? You say, of course not.
I mean,
what in his first match on, like they could, because they probably
he could have
a pay-per-view match.
He could have came very close, but defeat the Undertaker? Come on. Randy Orton didn't defeat the Undertaker.
I know, but it just feels like the sort of thing they would do, considering who they did have beat.
I just want to know why they have beef. Like, Undertaker, what did Undertaker do in Australia?
Well, I think it's more just like a prison thing. It's just like a guy here is calling himself the biggest dog in the yard, and that's like, I assume that's prison lingo, pretty much.
I'll grant you that, but then I wouldn't have said unfinished business.
Yeah. And then grabs Michael Cole around the neck and says that, and then he goes into some weird dialogue, like this is some clearly scripted bullshit about how it would either be Tok, they're alive, Tick, they're dead, or in between Tick and Tok when there's all the time in the world. Who wrote this shit? I'm just asking. It can't have been Heyman, but who did they compel to write this shit?
My assumption is it's one of the newly hired Hollywood writers that Stephanie McMahon is fond of.
I guess so. And then they do like he just stares off at the camera, and yeah, it wasn't the most exciting first impression that you get from him.
Right.
The impression you get is, oh, this dude's crazy and big.
Yeah, which might have been all they wanted, to be fair.
Two crates are lifted into the ring as Taker walks the corridors.
At least he was in the building this time.
They announced that Taker will face Big Show at No Way Out. After his entrance, Taker again is eyeing up the crates and pacing around like we've seen this 3 weeks in a row now. I would just like it if he just like. I would just like it if he just like sighed as soon as he saw it and just walked up to one of them immediately. And he said he has to like do his little pacing, get concerned.
But who knows? I mean, in the past 2 years, maybe even year and a half, if we're being honest, he's had his wife stalked. He's had beef with Ric Flair. He's done a lot in the last 2 years. So I kind of don't blame him.
So he opens the smaller crate first, and inside is a little spaniel.
Yeah, I love this visual of Undertaker holding a little dog.
Do you think that's Undertaker's dog?
I think it could have been. I don't know if Undertaker would actually have a small dog like that.
Whatever dog it was very well trained. Because there's always that mantra of like, especially in WWE when we know they've had the kennel from Hell Match and stuff like that, never work with children or animals.
That's right.
But this dog was very, very well behaved. It's a good dog.
It could have been his wife's dog.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, that kind of makes it his dog as well. Then surely. Maybe I don't know if they did, if she got him in the divorce instead, maybe.
Well, we know we haven't seen the small dog since, so if anything, Sarah probably got
it. So he hands it off to a production crew member. He then kicks through the larger crate, but he finds out there's nothing actually in there. Instead, it's Big Show attacking him from behind because he fooled him into thinking that he was inside the big crate. Yeah, that's super clever.
I have not cared for this story.
Yeah. No, Big Show, he's back now. He slams into the crates a couple of times and then choke slams him. They show pretty much a full replay of this immediately afterwards, and then Show quickly gets into his car during the commercial break to escape. So it just does a bit of a hit and run on the Undertaker.
I feel like these guys should feel more special, but they really don't.
Yeah, I think it was probably hampered due to the fact that Big Show was still nursing an injury and so wasn't coming to any of the shows. Let's move on to Torrie Wilson versus Nidia in a paddle on a pole match.
The best gimmick match of all time. Am I wrong here?
Yeah, no, they should have been doing this for Moxley and Omega rather than the barbed wire death match.
I know.
Could you imagine?
Honestly, if one of their gimmicks was a paddle, yes.
Yeah, that'd be if like Nakazawa was challenging for the world title. Yeah. Baby or on a pole match.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Let's just go through this match.
Okay. So during their entrance, Nidia doesn't want to be spanked by Noble like she usually is because she's still feeling the effects of Torrie spanking her last week, which is basically the whole segment in this entire match.
A 7-day effect of spanking. Must have been a rough week.
Torrie just like got some strong palms.
I guess so.
I mean, do you think it's bizarre that this match has got more storyline development in terms of this match is a logical follow-on from what happened last week? Again, it's a paddle on a pole, so it's obviously very diva-ish, but like it makes sense from what happened last week. Where is this logic? Where is this logic nowadays?
Not there, because everything's fake.
So one thing that has improved, at least nowadays, is that the wrestling's a lot better because these two fight really badly for a while as the crowd chant for puppies.
Why?
Why puppies?
Why are they fighting for so long?
Well, to be fair, at least this match goes less than 2 minutes. And the Brian Panics match from last week went a solid 5 or 6 minutes, so at least they kept this one brief. Nidia drops Torrie with a clothesline. Torrie then hits a swinging neck breaker, starts climbing up, but Noble distracts her. So she clotheslines him off the apron. Again, those strong arms.
Yeah.
She hits a suplex on Nidia, but then Torrie's now having to fight off the world on her own because Dawn Marie turns up, so she knocks her off the apron. And then Noble uses a distraction to hit a power slam on Torrie. Now, this power slam is terrifying because Torrie gets very little rotation. and she lands right on top of her head.
You surprised?
No, but it is still terrifying that at a point in time where obviously they were very liberal in how much women could get beaten up by men, but just that they decided that we're going to do this spot because we've seen spots beforehand where Noble just clotheslines Torrie.
Right.
But they decided, no, we're going to do a really fast spinning power slam instead, where Torrie is going to end up basically planting herself on the top of her head. Just thought it was an odd choice to go with that one.
Yeah,
I mean, I almost thought it would have been safer taking a powerbomb.
I feel like they were just going, hey, this is what it is. It's kind of why Torrie does say she did have to retire early, you know?
Nidia grabs the paddle, so she wins the match. She starts spanking Torrie with Noble's help. Funaki finally turns up, someone to help Torrie. He fights up Noble. They have probably a better brawl than they had a match. Just those two fighting. Noble takes a really scary dive onto his head and neck from a catapult onto the floor. Maybe Noble felt bad, and so he had to hurt himself after hurting Torrie.
Maybe.
Yeah, so bad match.
Par for the course.
At least the heel won and actually got to use the paddle, because that sometimes just doesn't happen. It's like, oh, the heel wins this whole match by cheating, and then they don't actually get to do the thing to the person they beat.
And I feel like Torrie needed a new rival, because the Dawn Marie stuff, it kind of ran its course.
She would have her next rival very soon after WrestleMania.
Oh yes. Oh, that's a different thing entirely, but it also still centers around a bikini contest.
And lesbian angles. Yeah. Hogan walks backstage. He wants to enter the Rock's dressing room, but he's again stopped by security. So he says that he'll see Rock in the ring instead.
Why would he think that he wasn't going to see him in the ring? Where do you hash out your big angles in 2003? You don't meet backstage.
Well, he would sometimes do it backstage with Big Mean Gene.
Yeah.
Hogan's of a different time.
That's true.
Hogan comes out for his usual great ovation to his terrible piped-in network music. But before he can even say anything on the mic, Rock comes down immediately to confront him. They get face-to-face and they mimic their little face-off between before WrestleMania 18, where they look from one side of the crowd to the other. And this doesn't feel as epic.
I wonder why.
Yeah. It's just.
I mean, like WrestleMania was WrestleMania.
Yeah, true. But to be fair, that face-off happened on the Raw before WrestleMania. I guess the second time round, it's never going to be as big as the first one.
Right.
Unless you're Okada and Omega. In which case, everyone is bigger than the one that previously happened.
Because the crowd is always as hot.
Rock drinks some water and the crowd chants for Hogan. Rock says that Hogan should apologize to him for some of the rude and disrespectful things that he said about him, like calling him Rock a Jabroni.
It's just not nice.
Rock circles the ring. I love the way they frame this, is that Rock is just constantly circling the ring around Hogan, and Hogan's just standing in the center, just staring him down constantly. Just like Rock's acting like he's absolutely terrified of getting too close to Hogan.
Which is great, because obviously he can easily defeat Hogan. We saw that at WrestleMania, and now it's like, oh no, he's a heel, so he's scared.
Yeah. Rock says Hogan was worthless until Rock challenged him at WrestleMania, so he takes personal credit for the rebirth of Hulkamania.
I agree with that, actually.
Hogan says that he's not apologizing to Rock because the people who are responsible for his rejuvenation of his character instead. Rock says Hogan doesn't remember WrestleMania because he beat him so badly. He then tries his millions lines and he gets very little response, which is good because the crowd are learning. Like, they tried to join in with The Rock beforehand, and he said, oh, don't join in, just stick to your convictions. And so he says, and the millions, and nobody really responds. Like, there's like a handful of people that say millions as well. And Rock kind of looks around, so I think, okay, you're actually going to join in?
That kind of control.
Yeah, I know, but it's like he said to the crowd earlier that they're not allowed to join in, and then he looks pissed off at the crowd because they didn't join in when he wanted to, when he did the line afterwards. It's like perfect heel, like two-facedness.
Yeah.
He then mocks Hulk Hogan's mannerisms, like "What you gonna do?" that sort of thing. And then and then he heads to the apron when Hogan starts ripping his shirt open.
Because yeah, he's not fucking with that. No, I know what happens here.
Rock then decides to try and change his tact a little bit. Says that he has a lot of love and respect for Hogan. And he offers him a handshake and says that he looks forward to having a good competitive match with him at No Way Out. Hogan goes for the handshake. Rock spits water in his face and then leaves. Retreats up the ramp. So now we are fully 100% heel Rock now.
Obviously, I mean, we'll get to this when we talk about No Way Out in a couple of days. But they can't ever really redo WrestleMania 18. It's foolish to think you can. But this is a fun match on Sunday.
So let's talk a little bit about the No Way Out 2003 card, because they do the reveal on here as they usually do. First of all, Bring Me to Life is the theme. Fucking awesome.
It's great. I don't know why when you have a returning superstar after half a year that you wouldn't use it for that.
No, of course not.
Use it for Steiner and Hunter. Like that's such a weird faux pas, and they rarely make those on the creative side.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we do the review side of it, but I can't think of really a song. I mean, there might be a few archetypes out there, but that's a song that kind of defines a genre of music, right?
Yeah, it's
so like if
song...
you listen to that type of music, you must listen to this song, that type of thing.
Yeah, like if you don't know what that is, you're almost like lying.
Also, I'm not expecting you to know the answer to this, but it's kind of just funny enough. I think it's worthy of at least a little bit of discussion. Why are they allowed to play this on the WWE Network, but they can't play Voodoo Child?
So there's certain songs, and I don't know too much about the rights in which they purchased them, but like Puddle of Mud, Nothing Left to Lose for the 2004 Rumble, they can't play. And it hurts the video package. Kid Rock, who they have a phenomenal relationship with, Cocky for the 2002 Royal Rumble, they cannot play. And Callum, one day you gotta go back and watch that video package without it and see how bad it is. I don't know why they can play certain things, but whenever they have to pipe in the generic theme, it kills the event almost.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that. I can understand them doing it for like the actual pay-per-view itself, because maybe it's like one of those things where when they originally signed to do the theme for that show, they can kind of have it in the clause somewhere saying that it's always be able to use this one for recreations of this for like DVDs and stuff like that. I just thought it was weird that it was just happening on a random episode of SmackDown. I was listening to Bring Me to Life, but I'm totally cool with it because that song's awesome.
Yeah.
So what we got to see at No Way Out 2003, we get to see Rock versus Hogan, of course.
Well, obviously.
Triple H versus Scott Steiner for the World Heavyweight Championship, the rematch of the century.
Very much so.
Who'd have thought that they've actually got Rock versus Hogan, and that's actually the rematch of the century right there.
I mean, listen, there are legends, and then there are just untouchable gods.
Team Angle taking on Brock Lesnar, Chris Benoit, and Edge. But more on that later.
I really hate that we didn't get the 6-man tag.
William Regal and Lance Storm versus Kane and Rob Van Dam for the World Tag Team Championships.
Good match, I'm sure. Everybody there knows how to do their job, you know?
Undertaker versus Big Show.
Yeah.
Jeff Hardy versus Chris Jericho.
Should be fun.
Billy Kidman defending the Cruiserweight Championship against Matt Hardy.
In a way, one of the biggest things Matt Hardy's ever done.
And finally, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Eric Bischoff.
Maybe you should have closed the show.
Maybe. Well, we'll obviously talk about it when we go through the card itself, but there's some good and bad there, at least from a immediate sight of it. They show a replay of Lesnar versus Cena from the previous week and the confrontation with Angle that followed it. And then we see John Cena sitting in a wheelchair with his leg plastered up and in a ridiculous Globetrotters outfit.
Well, he's still trying to find himself.
Lesnar declares war on Brock Lesnar, saying that he'll be a name that Lesnar will remember. And yeah, damn right you will.
Oh yeah.
It's like two guys that would define pretty much an era of their respective eras of the company.
It's so crazy.
I love some of Cena's lines here. He doesn't do anything like, well, he does one that's like a little bit, that sort of thing, but forcing you to keep me in the back of your mind, and since your brain's so small, I won't be hard to find.
Love that.
Yeah, that's a really good line. But then this one is a little bit, but it's funny anyway. I'll break you down, watch you drown, and not throw a rope. This is jail Brock, we inmates, and you just drop the soap. So basically saying he's about to fuck Brock Lesnar.
He's about to fuck Brock Lesnar. And I mean, if it's jail and Brock just dropped the soap, please keep Nathan Jones away from this man. What might happen?
This is the first time that I've seen Cena do this, and I felt the intensity that he shows in some of his promos in modern times.
Listen, I think he knew you better, if you're getting programmed with the world champion, you better go.
Yeah, and he's delivering here, so I do appreciate that. This is the first time you look at Cena and feel like, okay, I can actually take this guy a little bit seriously. So we have Brock Lesnar supposedly against Kurt Angle in the main event, a preview of WrestleMania 19.
Amazing.
Kurt Angle is accompanied by all of Team Angle and Paul Heyman. Angle grabs the mic as soon as he gets in the ring with Brock, says if he really wants to do this, and Lesnar obviously, of course, he wants to, but he then reveals that he has a special stipulation, that if he wants to face Kurt Angle, he first has to beat Shelton Benjamin. But in order to face Shelton Benjamin, he has to first defeat Charlie Haas.
Love it.
Yeah, so throwing the gauntlet out for Brock instead. So Brock has to beat both tag team champions back to back in order to face Kurt Angle. So Brock, first of all, just literally destroys Charlie Haas for several minutes.
As he should.
Yeah, he just forces him around. He hits him with suplexes all over the place. Haas at one point hits a German suplex, and he gets so unbelievably. It's like it's the best thing he's ever done in his career. It's just that he's suplexed Brock Lesnar. That he starts celebrating it immediately with Angle and Benjamin, but then he immediately gets taken down by Lesnar again. Yeah, it's a good spot. Lesnar launches him around with belly-to-belly throws. He does his backbreaker, a military press, and then an F5 back-to-back, and pins Charlie Haas.
So, I'm just thinking about the four men involved here. Kurt Angle, Shelton Benjamin, Brock Lesnar, and Charlie Haas. Have there ever been four more legitimate professional, like, wrestlers in WWE at the top of the card?
It's hard to say, really. Like, I don't know if there've been that many people with like really strong collegiate backgrounds. I think if you look back in like NWA or something like that, or WCW, you probably find good examples of that stuff.
Right, like I know, okay, Backlund's got one, Bret Hart had one, but like this is just like, okay, these are four. Imagine cloning Chad Gable essentially 4 times and putting him at the top of the card.
What about that Survivor Series tag when it was all of the Hart family against Michaels and the Knights? Because I assume all of the Hart family have at least some sort of wrestling background.
That might be the closest you get, just because it's the Hart family.
Yeah. So he's beaten Haas, so he gets to go in with Benjamin instead. He tosses Benjamin around with some butterfly suplexes to start with. But Benjamin, now that Lesnar's obviously been worn down a little bit by Charlie Haas, Benjamin gets to get a few more licks in. So he fights back with like a drop kick and a super kick. He then boots Lesnar with a shin to the face. So he's starting to get a few attempts on Lesnar as well. Benjamin targets the left arm of Lesnar. He applies a cross arm breaker. Of all things. Yeah, I mean, it's good to like MMA stuff. It just feels like because he has that arm breaker in. Like he has it in. He's not like trying to get it on and Lesnar's fighting. He has it locked in and Lesnar's not doing anything about it because Lesnar then lifts him up from the floor into a one-arm powerbomb because he is a freak of nature.
Because he's Brock fucking Lesnar and he's amazing.
Yeah. He dominates Benjamin, throws him around. Angle causes a distraction, but Lesnar then blocks a kick and drops Benjamin with a clothesline. I really thought when he blocked that kick, he was going to hit the Dragon Whip. But Lesnar's too smart for that. He just puts the foot down and kicks and takes his head off of a clothesline.
And I like that, as he should be.
And then I like this even more, is that Lesnar, instead of winning with the F5, he beats Benjamin with an angle slam.
Yeah, and Brock can do that, and it looks just as good, if not more impactful.
So Angle is in disbelief, and he stalls for a little while. But he gets focused, he gets in the ring, he marches to it with Heyman. Ref rings the bell. Heyman is immediately behind Lesnar with a steel chair to the back. Lesnar goes after Heyman. Angle starts attacking him as well. Angle starts choking him. Lesnar drops him out of the ring. He goes for an F5 to Heyman, but Angle chop blocks him. Team Angle all get involved. They start beating Lesnar down. They apply an ankle lock while Benjamin and Haas taunt him. But then we're on edge, get to the ring. They charge the ring. They make the save. Team Angle run sprawling. They're just retreating up the ramp. They get the advantage a little bit going into No Way Out. And yeah, that's how we end the show. And of course, this is the last that we will see of Edge for over a year at this point.
This is the last we see of Edge, period. And like Edge doesn't come back until April of 2004. He misses 2 WrestleManias.
Yep. Yeah, it's a shame on a house show coming up in the next couple of weeks that he essentially gets another injury, but it's just an aggravation of injuries that he's been carrying for several years at this point, especially after the TLC stuff. So
he might be, and this covers a lot of ground, so I'm not sure, but he might be the most injury-prone world champion caliber performer in history.
I'd say that he's probably quite high up there. I think yeah.
There's a lot of them, right?
Yeah, it does surprise me about the idea that Edge suffered so greatly in all that matches. I suppose like all of them did, but Bubba and Jeff are like 2 anomalies. In
Jeff,
terms of
it's gotta
never injured.
So, like Terry Funk right now is going through it, and he's lived a full life, like obviously. But I feel like that's gonna be Jeff, where one day it's just gonna be like he's gonna be like, I can't, like I'm good, I'm done.
Do you think he'll get into his 60s or 70s before that happens, though?
Probably.
Yeah, maybe so. But yeah, so that's so obviously we spoke about the fact there was like less than 20 minutes of wrestling, and not all of it on the show was good, especially the paddle on the pole match. But the Rock and Hogan stuff was entertaining. They did some more progression. Basically, every angle involved something that was going to happen on No Way Out. So I can't complain too much. It's not the greatest episode of SmackDown we've seen on this journey, but it's definitely not the worst one either.
Definitely not the worst. Pretty fun stuff with Rock and Hogan. I get so excited. It's almost sad how I'll see Hulk Hogan or The Rock or like just Kurt Hennig or something, and I'm like, oh my god, it's a star. Like they feel different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they have an aura about them that people nowadays just can't match.
And it's unfortunate because, listen, the people nowadays are putting in some of the best work I've ever seen in my life, but they don't have that star power.
So that's the end of this edition. We only have 2 more actual episodes of SmackDown to review. So getting very close to the end. But before that, of course, if you are subscribed to the Patreon at the $10 tier or above, you will be listening to our 2003 review. So we'll be doing the whole show on that one as well, talking about all the matches that we broke down on the card earlier. And yeah, it'll be a fun time. So if you aren't subscribed to that tier and you feel like you have to spare change in order to chalk up for that one as well, then feel free to subscribe now, and you get to listen to that as well as every other pay-per-view review that we've done from the summer of 2002 all the way through to now. And obviously we'll be doing a special edition one for WrestleMania 19 as well. So make sure you're subscribed by that point at the very least, because that is an awesome show.
Yeah, WrestleMania 19 is, without a doubt, it's the blueprint for WrestleManias, I think. I think it's the reason that WrestleMania looks the way it does today. I think there's something to be said about the fact that a lot of those guys at the top of that card are not around in 2 months following that. And there's a reason why you can look at now's WrestleMania and go, part-timers are okay.
So as opposed to that, we'll be looking forward to next week, if you're just listening to the shows week to week. We're going to have a handicap match in the main event with Brock Lesnar against Team Angle. So
Very cool.
instead of taking them on one at a time, you're going to take them on both at once instead. We'll have a 5-minute challenge with Kurt Angle taking on Brian Kendrick.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
We get to see Los Guerreros, or at least Eddie Guerrero, in action for the first time since the total rebranding them as the Lie, Cheat, and Steal guys.
Like it.
And we get to see Chris Benoit in a tag team match against Matt Hardy and Shannon Moore, but I won't reveal what his partner is yet.
It's definitely not Edge, as we've covered, but might be somebody who knows Edge a little well.
Yeah. So we'll be covering all of that stuff. So that'll be the February 27th edition. Hopefully you've enjoyed this one so far. Just going to throw a few plugs your way. Obviously, we've mentioned the Patreon already. But if you can't subscribe at the $10 tier, if you can only give $1 or $2 or anything of that amount, then it's obviously all greatly appreciated. All goes to help out keeping the lights on at Smark Out Moment and helping Tony out and all that other great stuff.
Right.
Other monetary ways, of course, is the Redbubble and TeePublic shops where you can pick up some Smark Out Moment merchandise. If you just want to do like a couple of one-off payments, pick up just a t-shirt or a shower curtain or anything along those lines, that's great.
If you have a Smack Out Moment shower curtain, please send that our way and let us know, because you are dedicated.
Yeah, take a photo of it. Obviously not while you're showering, because that'd be weird. But
that would be weird, so please no.
Other ways you can support us non-monetarily, of course, is by visiting the website smarkoutmoment.com, checking out, reading the articles, sharing them around with your friends, giving them a few comments on there as well if you feel like you want to add your thoughts to the conversation as well. Following us on social media, Facebook and Twitter at Smark Out Moment, and joining the Megamaniacs Facebook group, facebook.com/group/the Megamaniacs, where you can just join in the conversation with like-minded wrestling fans, share a few memes every now and again. Fanboys Anonymous, that's Tony's geek culture side of things, where you get to talk, if you want to talk about movies, you want to talk about video games and television shows and comic books and all that other great stuff, Fanboys Anonymous is the place to go. They have their own Patreon, they have their own Redbubble, TeePublic, obviously their own website, fanboysanonymous.com, Facebook and Twitter as well. And of course, me and Rob are also helping him out with a few episodes of Review to a Kill, which is our James Bond retrospective podcast where we're going through every single James Bond movie, doing a nice little review of those ones as well. So if you enjoy essentially these retro reviews or any other things we do, then I'm pretty sure you'll love that as well. Even if you're not a Bond fan. Yeah.
You said it was Tony's, as though we haven't been recording every week for Fanboys Anonymous.
Yeah, I know we are doing it all over the time. Yeah, we're now actively involved in the fanboy space as well. But obviously, yes. It's Tony's baby.
It's Tony's baby, but these are all Tony's babies, and thankfully, he trusts us enough to.
Well, this is my baby.
Run with it.
This show is my baby.
It's your baby, but it is housed within Tony's baby.
That's really weird.
And I'm just here.
It's a baby within a baby.
And I'm just here.
Yeah, okay. But Rob, what are your babies then?
Yeah, because I'm always busy. I'm over on Fightful.com, helping out with the news, helping out with everything. Obviously, this is a big weekend. We've got Bloodsport 5 later today. We've got Progress that was earlier today. So go over to Fightful and check out the results for that. Tomorrow night is Elimination Chamber. Tony and I will be on the review for that. Come and see what we think. Come and see if they've messed everything up, if they've somehow improved things. You can also check out WrestleZone.com, because I'm still over there helping out. And check me out on Twitter at DeFelice. And eventually, there will be some Twitch news, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Very exciting to hear about that. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. And yeah, that's it for this edition. So thank you very much for listening. We do appreciate your continued support, and hopefully you enjoy the very short remainder of this series. But for now, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and we are being counted out.